Hello and welcome to Africa Today. I'm Busola Mitunwashe. In a continent where democratic process is now a routine, elections have become a regular political ritual in the last 2 decades, where polls are often free but largely unfair, peaceful but rarely credible. Holding its third presidential vote since the 2011 Arab Spring, Egypt finds itself in the spotlight with a ballot that obviously features 2 candidates but logically present one choice. So we ask, what are your thoughts on political development in Egypt as the people seek to elect a president to run the affairs of the country for the next 4 years? You can join the conversation and share your thoughts with us on Twitter at TVC News NG. Potaka Report and Africa Today will continue. Welcome on board.
Egypt through this vote, which concludes on Wednesday, is expected to give President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi a sweeping victory in the absence of real competition, running against just one challenger, Moussa Mustafa, after several credible political rivals quit the race. The state news agency reminded Egyptians that voting is mandatory and those who do not vote face a fine of up to £500. A predictable outcome led to the low amount of voters as Egyptians cast their votes on the second day of the presidential election.
When it comes to the claim that it is already decided, those running are not many, and President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is the only person who is capable. The time that we are living in at the moment needs a certain leader with specific characteristics. No one has that at the moment except for Sisi.
I expect the voting rate this time will be around 30 to 40%. This is reasonable as, generally speaking, the voting rate is normally very high. In addition, the election result is pretty predictable, and people all know that the current president Sisi will win the election. So many people think it's unnecessary to go vote.
Many young people doubt if al-Sisi can guide the country to further development rather than taking a second term. Public opinion believes if the final voting rate is too low, the government may delay implementation of the simple reform measure over the next 4 years.
Glad to have you back. Egyptians began casting their ballots on Monday in a presidential election that will run over 3 days and is likely to keep President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in power. His only opposition, Moussa Mustafa, is a Sisi loyalist who in 2017 started a campaign called Supporters of President al-Sisi's nomination for a second term. Joining me in the studio today on Africa Today, I have Alester Wilcox, political analyst and social commentator. Many thanks for joining us, Alester.
Thank you.
And of course, on Skype, I have Dr. Rewa Fattah, Director of Middle East Consultancy Services in London, United Kingdom. Many thanks for joining us. All right, let's start with you in the studio, Alester. What are your thoughts on the political happenings in Egypt as we speak?
Well, it's not different from what we have in African democracies, especially where there is not clear democratic norms. Egypt has not been a country that has democratic norms. They've been on a one-party rule. We know what Mubarak did, having ruled for over 30 years before he was brought down. The first election had the Muslim Brotherhood winning the election, and they didn't, because they don't understand what democracy is, they fluttered immediately. And as soon as that happens, there was another spring which brought in al-Sisi. Now, right now, there is no strong contention in terms of elections. It's like a ritual, just like what you have maybe in the Soviet Union. So it's just basically the weak democratic institutions, the democratic culture in the entire in Africa, in most African countries, that is playing out right now in Egypt. So it's not surprising.
All right, let's join Ribwana. What do you make of the political atmosphere in Egypt as we speak? There are quite a lot of questions, but let's set the stage really and understand where we were coming from, how Egypt got to where it is today. What is your take, the overview of what it is happening in Egypt today?
I think I must agree with my colleague in the studio. I think the political atmosphere in Egypt is very depressing now, because now the nation goes into election, to the ballot boxes, and everybody knows who's going to win. So this is very, very depressing. And adding to this, there is, as my colleague said, there are no institutions, there are no civil society, and we cannot see any. Yeah, it's all oppressed. The economy is really very bleak. Egypt, to a very good extent.
All right, I'm afraid we have to cut that now. Your audio is not quite clear. We'll try and reconnect, and I will get back to you. But back to Alistair in the studio. Let's talk about the Arab Spring of 2011. Yeah. The major point, the major contention was the issue of economic reform and the issue of democratization of the processes of electing the president or whatever elective post that was available. Yes. How would you judge what 2011 portended and what we have today in Egypt?
Yeah, 2011 was, like you said, was about economic reforms and democratization of leadership positions. But the fact is, there were no, like sorry, my colleague in London is trying to say, there is no strong civil society. Egypt has been a kind of militarized country, and it has stifled opposition for too long. It has stifled the press. There has not been that freedom that will have galvanized the people into a strong force to be able to withstand the shocks that come with democratic tenets. Now, that is why he discovered this. He saw that the Muslim Brotherhood just fluttered because they were still having, that mentality of a kind of super state, just like Iran, where there are no culture, no civility. You just do anything. That's why they fluttered in the first 2 days. Now, as El-Sisi, who came from the military background, is also still, so it's like the people just want to get rid of one person without strong foundation. And that person came in with a kind of, voting. For me, voting is not democracy. Going to the ballot, the polls to cast your ballot for a leader is not democracy. Now, democracy has to do with inbuilding the culture among people, the civil society, the strong institution that will withstand those things. Now, and that is totally absent in Egypt, because they have not, that those culture has not been imbibed in, and they had the Muslim Brotherhood, a fanatic president. Now they are having somebody from the military background. So it's like wobbling and fumbling, and it will take them for a long time, because
many people actually said that what we have in Egypt today is reminiscent of what they had during Hosni Mubarak.
Well, the difference is that in Hosni Mubarak, it's just a one-party rule, and there was no room for dissent, and so everybody was just had to tone in, and the army, everyone was supported. But at the right now, they begin to have some resemblance of election, because parties are formed, people are rearing their heads, but the site is not strong yet. The civil site that is the engine room of democracy is not there. Or even if it is there, it is not strong yet, because the press is still being stifled in Egypt.
There is a report right now that calls Egypt the biggest prison for journalists in the world. And when it comes to a press freedom index, Egypt is doing so badly, according to such report. Well, so when you say it is not reminiscent of what we had during Hosni Mubarak, completely correct?
There is some level of improvement. And reports can always tilt himself to where they want to tilt themselves to. If you are saying Egypt is the biggest prison of Iran, North Korea, and some of those states that are so intolerant, at least in Egypt, the journalists could still operate a little, because right now, yes, they may have something that looks like a democracy, that looks more like a democracy than when they were in the Mubarak era. But yet, they've not arrived. I would say they are still miles apart, but not that progress has not been made. If you put them side by side with countries like Iran, countries like North Korea, countries like even China, even Russia. No, these are countries that really are muzzling up everybody. Look at the last election in Russia. Russia is, it's an European country, but look at the last election in Russia. So it is a problem. It's a problem to the people, and I'm sure it will not take one election. It will not take 2 cycles of election. It will take consistent cycles of election for them to grow. We in Nigeria, we are still toddling in our own democracy, even though we've practiced democracy long time flutter, came back. We are now doing 20. We are trying to do 20 years now. 19 years on broken run. We are going to do 20 very soon. And you see how we are still fluttering. So democracy is not really. It takes the people to really know what to want to do. Ghana work faster than Nigeria. But look at where Nigeria is. So Egypt will take much more time.
All right.
To get to where they should get to.
Quite a lot to talk about, but this is Africa Today, and we'll be looking at political development in Egypt as the people seek to elect a president to run the affairs of the country for another 4 years. We'll go on a quick break, and Africa Today continues. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Up until 2005, there was no such thing as a presidential election in Egypt, with voters being asked to approve or reject a candidate selected by parliament. In the run-up to this year's poll, 6 potential candidates were either jailed or had to drop out, citing obstacles to registration and harassment by state security services. And we still have Fatah with us here right now, joining us from London via Skype. Fatah, let's talk about the election tactics of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in terms of opposition candidates. Many of them have dropped out. Many of them, 1 or 2 of them actually were arrested or some detained. What is your take on that?
I think the Sisi's strategy was very, very clear. I mean, he just wanted to eliminate or push aside all the strong candidates that can constitute a threat to him. So he had this chap Musa at the last minute. I think about, I don't know, on the same day of the deadline of the candidacy. So he got this. Obviously, he knows that he can get most of the votes against him. But the tactic was that to eliminate all the strong candidates that they can constitute a threat to him, and intimidation, and I don't know, jail and so on. It was the method that it was used. So I mean, as we see, that's where we are. That's why everybody believes Sisi is going to win. But I mean, what will be the turn over, we don't know yet.
All right, let's go through some of those candidates that were declined, or some of them detained, some of them harassed. One of them is Ahmed Shekaf, who is a former prime minister and was a presidential candidate in 2012. You have Khalid Ali, who is a human rights lawyer, and Sami Anan, interesting character here, who was disqualified and detained because, according to them, he never really disengaged from the military completely before he went on and contested for that election. But tell me how that is playing out well, or auguring well, in terms of the image that Egypt is portraying to the international community.
I think Egypt's image has been damaged in the international community, and I think the fact that we all know the story about the elections and we all know who's going to win, and Egypt has been in the headlines for a few years, and we all know that the security in Egypt is very poor. Insurgency, more or less control in Sinai Peninsula, and there are assassinations and extrajudicial killing. I don't know. I mean, the human rights reports are very, very clear about Egypt's human rights violation. So Sisi's policy is really mostly to create a state that he can control. But I don't believe that's a successful policy.
And yet, Fatah, Sisi is the first president in 7 years to visit the White House. Remember, he was with President Trump in the U.S. last year. Really, something must give. And in terms of its relations with Israel, some people have said there is a secret pact with Israel and Egypt. How will that all go well?
Well, I mean, the relationship between Israel and Egypt is one part of that equation, but the other part is probably the Trump's institution believe that the alternative to Sisi is Muslim Brotherhood, and we know that that is not going down very well with American policy. So perhaps that's why Sisi is capitalizing on America, and that's probably why America is keeping Sisi in power. They try to pull some strings. For example, they delayed some of the funds to Egypt, but I believe Egypt will get all its funds from America. Because, to put it mildly, America has no option except America is not going to, change the system in Egypt, and it has no power, and it's not going to destabilize because America fears that Muslim Brotherhood can come back to their administration. So I think America cannot really do much in Egypt.
Okay, Fatah, we'll come back to you just in a while. Let's come back to the student. Alistair, you're nodding your head. You agree with what he's saying?
Yes, to a large extent, yes. It's a dangerous balancing. It's like between the devil and the deep blue sea.
Okay.
Now, Sisi represents the moderates, for which stability for Israel, stability for the U.S., stability for some of the issues within the North African region is being checked. Like he said, the alternative, right, and the strongest bloc is the Muslim Brotherhood. And Sisi was able to dislodge the Muslim Brotherhood from the body policy of Israel, of Egypt, sorry. The Muslim Brotherhood posed a big risk to both within Egypt and outside Egypt, especially for Israel, because of Israel. So it's a delicate balance. Now, Sisi will be able to enjoy some international respect, being that he stabilizes Israel against the Egypt, against the Muslim Brotherhood, against the fundamentalists, the Muslim Brotherhood. So that is just the balance in here. And but domestically, yes, the citizens of Egypt will have been happy. Okay, this was someone that was able to bring them out of the stronghold of the Muslim Brotherhood from overrun the entire country. But at the same time, at some point, they also will need to have a say, and so there must be that internal squabble for power, because nobody wants to be dominated forever.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we're back to domestic issues now, and let's look at the only candidates that we have running against Sisi, Musa Mustafa, who has been a loyalist of Sisi for years, really. Is that just a pseudo candidate, or you think is a real candidate?
I'm not aware that they've fallen out. I'm not aware that they've fallen out, and I'm not aware that he's getting kind of harassment that others got. So I see it as a pseudo candidate. It's somebody that, well, let's make up the number. If he's a loyalist, and maybe my memory has not served me, or I've not read the fact that they have fallen out, or he's come under any form of security watch or scrutiny or any form of harassment like all the others, then it goes to conclude that he's a pseudo candidate, just persons of the same house. And of course, what political weight does he carry? Will be able to upset Fatah? He will not be able to upset. Already the elections are going on, and people are the same. The turnout is low. Remember, in Egypt, it's a crime not to vote. Now you pay a fine, and so the people are being reminded. So it's like you are compelled. You don't have much, and that's why I say there must be some internal being cleansing, domestic cleansing. Yes, externally he might still be enjoying some little respect, some support from the Western powers, but internally he cannot hold on for damn too long. Yes, he's holding on now. Okay. But it may not be for a very, very long time.
Okay, let's bring Fatah back in here now. Mr. Fatah, let's look at the election tactics now that Alexa just mentioned one, that it's now an offense, or it has been, but the people are reminded that if you don't go out to vote, there will be some fines. And there are issues of, in some provinces, for instance, people have promised to go on Mecca if they come outside to vote. Some are giving subsidized food food boxes. Some of them are giving money. How do you... In terms of voter apathy, how do you think that played out well for this election?
I think the election already lost all its credibility, to be honest, not just locally in Egypt, internationally. This is why we are discussing the Egyptian election. Otherwise, you would have been discussing in a different way. So, and Sisi is desperate for people to turn out into the ballot, into the boxes. And it won't be a success for him if, for example, 10% of the voters. We already know less than probably 50% of the 60 million voters will turn out, and it will potentially turn out. How many of those can actually vote? We don't really know. Whether we ever know, I am not really sure, because the boxes can be played out in different ways.
Rawat, the report we were getting is that the turnout isn't particularly a joyful one and not particularly interesting, not particularly impressive in terms of the number of youths that are coming out. You know that Egypt has about 60 million viable voters who are meant to register, and that figure, 61% of them are youth. But what we have really is that some of them are not really turning up for this election.
I think if there are real figures after the election, the percentage of people turning out to vote, I think the percentage is very, very low. Will be very, very low. But I am my concerns are I am not really sure whether we get the actual figures for the people turned out to vote, because those figures can also be played with in a country when there are no accountability, where there are no independent commission of the election that can have power and can assert power. So that's my worries, whether we ever know how many people voted. I have my own doubts. Because if the turnout is very, very low, that's effectively vote of confidence on Sisi. Effectively, people want Sisi to go, and I think there will be a lot of pressure on him.
All right, Dr. Fattah Umar, thank you for your time on Africa Today. Many thanks. All right, we still have Alester in the studio. Let's talk about the socio-economic implication of the challenges ahead right now. Inflation rate in Egypt is not fantastic. Yeah. The price of food has jumped up about 30%. Yeah. The rate of unemployment for youth is skyrocketing. Yeah. How do you think you'll be able to manage?
Yeah, Egypt has not fared well economically even since the Arab Spring. The reasons I really do not know, because Egypt has potentials to grow. But because of all these squabbles, the Muslim Brotherhood angle, so many things. Remember journalists that were saved. So they find themselves in the wrong end of the ladder. And so it's a tough job. And that's why it's that the youths are having this apathy. So that's why I said it will take a little while when Sisi will be forced out, because the uprising that created the first Arab Spring, which is economic based, it's still there. So if there's high level of unemployment, there's inflation going up, the people will revolt. And these are people that do not fear the barriers of the gun. They're not like the others of Africa that the barriers of the gun scares away. These are people that do not fear the barriers of the gun.
All right.
So Sisi will do itself a whole world of good.
All right.
To know when the ovation is loudest. Right now, this is like a referendum on him.
And when to say
and like
goodbye.
He said, if the vote falls below a certain threshold, Sisi should know that it is time to pack and go and keep his integrity in
it's a good place
check.
to live with. Many thanks for your time, Alester.
It's my utmost pleasure. Thank you very much.
At a point in time when the noise of politics can easily drown out the voice of common sense, Egypt looks set to remain stuck with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, whose victory was a foregone conclusion before the first vote had even been cast. From a past that has got the Arab Spring written over to present-day movement of uneasy calm, the future of the North African nation largely depends on good governance, where democracy is more than a word and prosperity is more than a wish. That's our package for today. But don't forget to join the conversation on Twitter at TVC News NG, and also follow me for updates around Africa at Busisolami TVC News. Until next time, I am Busolami Tumashe. But remember, this is Africa.